with immigrants in Delaware River Bay from England who settled some at the Cape and some elsewhere. Among those at the Cape were two Baptists, George Taylor and Philip Hill. Taylor kept a meeting in his own house, and with his exhortations, reading the Bible and expounding and enlightening some in the article of believers' baptism. After his death in 1702, Mr. Hill continued the meetings till 1704 when he died. Soon after, George Eaglesfield visited the Cape and made more proselytes. These went to Philadelphia to receive baptism, as appears by the Association book. Here's this name again. In 1688, Elias Keach visited these parts and ordained Ashton. In the fall of 1711, Thomas Griffiths of Welsh Track, Delaware, went to the Cape with a view to purchase land and settle among the people for life. But failing in his design, he quitted them the next spring and recommended to them Nathaniel Jenkins, who had just arrived in the country from Wales. Mr. Jenkins came and pleased the people, and on June 24, 1712, he and they were constituted a Baptist church by Timothy Brooks of Cohansey, and his elders were 37 constituents, of whom 20 were women and 17 men, a noteworthy statement. Baptists, in their long vigil of 29 years, each true to the divine word, no doubt oft times discouraged, and yet for Christ's sake was a sufficient motive. First, Cape May was the 5th Baptist church established in New Jersey, and it was the first to recognize wives and daughters as equally entitled with husbands and sons to be enrolled as constituents of a gospel church. How much Mr. Jenkins had to do with this is unwritten. In 1715, they built their first meeting house on land of a man whose title being naught, they lost both the house and land. In 1742 to 1743, religion was raised high at the Cape, owing partly to the preaching of Baptist ministers and partly to the labors of the New Light order. But many of the disciples of the latter, joining the Baptists, caused much grumbling and a public dispute and polemic writings. This was the occasion of the public debate on baptism, in which Able Morgan of Middletown had a part with the president of Princeton College. So you remember, some of you seeing the book a couple of years ago that we showed you at Hopewell, that Able Morgan authored concerning baptism. And the reason why he did was because of the debates between he and President Samuel Finley of Princeton College on the subject of baptism. The Presbyterians were being converted. They were becoming Baptist, and of course the Presbyterian folks didn't like it. Preachers such as Findley, who was the president there at Princeton, challenged the Baptists to a debate on the subject of baptism, and it said that every time they debated, the Baptist preacher soundly defeated him.
Sure. Amen.
So, as it usually is the case, the establishment, having much at their disposal in the way of funds, he published a book against the Baptist and called it Anti-Pedo-Baptist Rantism. Anti-Pedo-Baptist Rantism. Now, we are Baptist, and they are pedo or pedo-Baptist, which means child baptizers. And who was it that was telling me about? Was it you, brother Bar? Who was telling me about the Anti-Pedo-Baptist? Which church was it, brother?
It's in their book.
And was it? Which church was it? Was it Salem?
Yes.
Yeah, the church at Salem. That was one of their titles when they formed. They called themselves the Anti-Pedo-Baptist Church.
Amen.
And you remember down at Georgetown, South Carolina, if you travel there, you can look at the sign outside of the First Baptist Church in Georgetown, and that was what they called themselves. This is the Anti-Pedo-Baptist Church. They just told you right up front not only who they were, but what they were against. And that's what the title of Samuel Finley's book was, against the Baptist preacher Morgan, Anti-Pedo-Baptist Rantism. In other words, you're against child baptism, so you're anti-pedo-Baptist, and you're just ranting and raving, going on about this. There's no substance to it, and so he published a book against the Baptist preacher, and at his own expense, the Baptist preacher, and that's the way it goes most of the time, fellas. You have to refute it the best way you can, but he did have the book printed, and Benjamin Franklin is the one who printed it for him in 1747, and that's what he did, and he said it was, and the name of it was Anti-Pedo-Baptist Rantism Examined. And so he examined the book, and some of you remember seeing the copy that we were able to get for the Baptist History Museum, printed by Franklin, first edition, owned by David Jones with his signature several places in the book, and the date of 1760, which means that he owned a book that was written by his uncle, Able Morgan, printed by Benjamin Franklin, and probably, given the date 1760, was one that he used as a textbook while he was there at the First Baptist Academy in the country under the tutelage of Isaac Eaton. So it's quite a museum piece. And we're thankful when we can find those things, and we put them on display. But this was the place where that first debate happened. And then he goes on to say in the book, Nathaniel Jenkins was the first pastor for 18 years, going from Cape May to Cohansey. And you remember that's the place where Jenkins is buried there at Cohansey. The story is related in here again about Jenkins and what he did in the assembly. And it goes on to say that his son followed him in the ministry, and then there were other pastors here as well.